Story 1. When drivers exhibit road rage and behave as if they own the road, it is concerning. It is disappointing when individuals believe that reckless driving is cool, as this demonstrates a lack of respect for the lives of their passengers. If someone drives irresponsibly shortly after picking me up for a date, I would appreciate being taken back home. Such behavior is not impressive. Story 2. When someone is arrogant or acts as if they are better than others, it is an instant turnoff. Confidence is one thing, but putting others down to boost yourself is not appealing at all. Story 3. I know people are always working on themselves, and instead of having a deal breaker, I look for someone who is trying. You can smoke cigarettes, use profanity, and make mistakes. You will find that when you fall in love with someone and they fall in love with you, many of the things that upset you will change because loving you means they want to see you happy. I am not critical or judgmental of people. I do not understand enough to make any conclusions about someone based on their appearance or behavior. Story 4. From a guy's perspective, every time I enter a girl's bathroom and see a dirty, unclean toilet seat, it's an instant turn-off. I have noticed that this is often the case with students living alone for the first time. Story 5. Makes rude comments and asides about people simply going about their everyday lives. Once went on a date with a man who made a disrespectful remark about how large a woman's feet looked in her sandals. I instantly lost respect and interest in him. Story 6. Racist and hateful views. There is too much voluntary negativity when there are so many other positive things to do and think about. Story 7. They simply wait for their turn to speak and do not listen. I work on cruise ships, and nearly every colleague or friend is just waiting to talk. No one listens. It's quite frustrating. Story 8. A couple of times, my gaze fell upon someone who just gave off the vibe of someone I would like to get to know better, only to have my little fantasy completely crash when they lit up a cigarette. No thanks. Story 9. When people randomly drop out sexual hints or questions, it makes us question their intentions and the meaning behind their interest in us. Story 10. Sheeple. As soon as that comes out of their mouth or they type it, I'm done, unless it's pertaining to South Park episodes. Story 11. Smoking and vaping emit unpleasant odors, are visually unappealing, and are detrimental to your health and the health of those around you. Story 12. Smoking or vaping, even if the person is very attractive, totally turns me off. Story 13. It is rude to complain to the staff about the product or price. Story 14. I thought this subreddit used to have higher standards for its posts. I used to see genuinely interesting questions being asked. Now, everything I come across appears to have very low effort. Story 15. Blow your nose or pick it in private. I don't want to know about it. Just avoid blowing your nose on the street, and don't pick your nose and then touch things in public. Story 16. An arrogant know-it-all interrupts conversations to finish your thought because they believe they know everything. They correct people and professionals in jobs they are not qualified for, saying things like, "That's wrong," or "I wouldn't have done it that way." This attitude often comes with a severe lack of empathy, particularly toward situations they have never experienced. They might say, "I wouldn't have responded like that," or "Why didn't they just do this? That's what I would have done." I also cannot stand people who start arguments for fun, simply to provoke others or because they genuinely enjoy arguing. My best friend dated someone like that, and he infuriated me. Story 17. Nothing is worse than returning to a home that is filthy. I'm not referring to a house that is simply lived in, with a few dishes on the side or clothes draped over the back of a chair. I mean a place with no visible kitchen space and an unpleasant smell that lingers. Story 18. I can't stand people who constantly complain. I am not referring to a bad week or issues with their spouse, but picking apart really unimportant things is exhausting to hear all the time. Story 19. People who believe they are always right about everything and are openly judgmental about anything that does not align with their worldview. Story 20. Body odor and poor hygiene cannot be overcome by even the most attractive face or best physique. It is literally repulsive. Story 21. My best friend ended a relationship with a girl who claimed she felt like she had served in the military after one trip to the gun range to shoot pistols. Story 22. Smokes and thinks less of others, believing they are better than everyone else. They get upset when you challenge their opinion, though you are only trying to understand. They prioritize other things over family. For example, after you gave birth and fasted all day, the one thing you wanted was McDonald's, but that was not possible because they wanted to get home and smoke before it got too late. Story 23. On a first date, we arrived at the movie about 30 minutes early. I asked her if she wanted to walk around the park and talk to get to know each other. She said no and preferred to listen to Midwest emo in her car for the entire 30 minutes. Story 24. Wearing clothes for too long, not washing them regularly, and not showering regularly can lead to unpleasant odors. People may think that no one notices, but they do. I have a colleague like that, and nobody wants to sit in a room with him, but he doesn't seem to care. The manager tried to talk to him about this, but he cannot be dismissed for being unkempt, and he has not made any changes. Story 25. Failing to wash hands after using the bathroom, directly scratching the genital area or buttocks by reaching inside or under clothing, and handling raw meat in the kitchen can lead to health issues. While it is acceptable to wait until finishing outdoor work or chores to wash hands, it is not acceptable to use the bathroom or touch raw meat and then continue with daily activities without washing hands. This is unhygienic. Story 26. Boasting about oneself can be detrimental. While self-confidence is important, overconfidence can lead to negative outcomes. Story 27. When they openly unburden themselves, they should have a bit of decorum and step out like the rest of us. Story 28. Well, my friend had a crush on a guy who used a racial slur. The crush was immediately over. Story 29. Yelling at strangers often signifies frustration during interactions. While I have no issue with the choice to consume nicotine, it can be off-putting. I am not interested in competing for the attention of someone who seeks excitement from chance-based activities. If someone frequently engages in negative talk, they may be spreading gossip about others. Ranting is acceptable, but I prefer to avoid those who rely on negativity as their primary form of conversation. I strive to minimize negativity in my life. Story 30. One thing that instantly makes someone unattractive to me is if their first instinct is to find fault. They haven't even settled in, and they're already criticizing the decor, someone's outfit, or even the weather. It just exudes negativity. Story 31. Impersonations. For some reason, some individuals think that doing this for women is cool or funny. Public service announcement. It is not. You will definitely not succeed in your intentions. Story 32. Not taking care of their hygiene and showing little to no interest in others while only wanting to talk about themselves. Story 33. Flirting with people who are already in relationships and not choosing the one they claim to love is not attractive. It reveals poor character and a fickle nature, neither of which I am interested in investing my love in. Story 34. Littering. Being rude to people in the service industry. Interrupting while talking to guess what someone is going to say in order to finish their sentence is frustrating. It's important to let others finish their thoughts. Story 35. Eat with their mouths open. Poor dental hygiene, such as yellow teeth and bad breath, is a major turnoff for me. I do not care how attractive someone looks with their mouth closed. It is a complete deal breaker. Story 36. Treating children like subhumans. I worked with a kindergarten teacher when I was teaching special education, and I was trying to gather the courage to get to know her outside of work. However, when I observed how she behaved when she was even slightly frustrated with the children, her demeanor changed dramatically. It became difficult to view her as objectively attractive after that. Story 37. As a woman who has always dated other women, I can tell you that difficult personalities exist in the LGBTQ+ community and among younger age groups. It is just as unattractive and off-putting no matter who it is. Story 38. Eating boogers. Unsolicited explicit images. Screaming fits. Fixated on genital scratching. Everyone poops, and it is unattractive for everyone while doing so. Story 39. Anyone who feels the need to insert their accomplishments, high income, or any other boastful aspect of their life into every conversation comes off as egotistical. Story 40. When people play games on their phones and browse the web while having coffee or on a date, I consider that a double red flag. The phone should be in their pocket or face down on the table. Story 41. Being rude, cruel, unkind, dismissive, and condescending to others, especially to those over whom they have power. Story 42. If I had $1 every time someone asked this question here, I wouldn't be paying taxes right now. Story 43. Unnecessary aggression, not in a protective way or due to being wronged, appears immature and unintelligent to me. Story 44. Interrupting people and not apologizing can be frustrating. It's understandable if something is extremely important or someone is very excited, but it is courteous to acknowledge others when they are speaking. Story 45. Laugh at people less fortunate than themselves. Be rude and entitled with service staff, such as flight attendants and cashiers. Neglect basic personal hygiene. Story 46. Getting angry at people for doing the same things they did while driving. Being cruel to animals in any form. Being disrespectful to service workers. Not respecting boundaries that have been established. Speeding down the road excessively and finding it amusing, such as driving 50 miles per hour on a residential street or attempting to reach 100 miles per hour on a highway. Trying to justify or defend their friends or siblings cheating. Refusing to drink water. Honestly, who does not drink water? Story 47. When they already have the best, they try to change into something better, which is actually getting worse. Story 48. People who chew with their mouths open or are extremely loud for no reason. Those seeking attention. Individuals who aren't very articulate and are closed-minded or pessimistic. Story 49. Being cruel to animals. Being superficial. Lacking a sense of curiosity. Being ignorant of basic knowledge. Poor hygiene. Being dramatic or childish. Being physically or emotionally aggressive or manipulative. Lacking hobbies, as this may lead to you becoming their sole focus. Story 50. Post selfies with superficial poses and expressions. It is unattractive and self-absorbed. Story 51. People who play mind games. I don't have patience for that. Either be upfront or get going. Story 52. Negativity. If all you ever talk about is what is bad about life or in your life, I will quickly avoid your presence. Story 53. When a woman flirts with every man she sees, I don't care how pretty she is. I'll avoid her at all costs. Story 54. Have no depth, no personal opinion or thought. I dislike it when people adapt certain personalities based on their environment. Story 55. I saw a man at a coffee shop whom I considered giving my number to, until I noticed him using the pavement next to his table to blow his nose. It seemed like napkins didn't exist. Story 56. Any mention of their love for God may come across as overly religious or politically conservative. Additionally, smoking and tattoo sleeves are often noted. Story 57. Littering is unacceptable. I don't care how attractive someone is. The moment I see someone litter, I assume they lack basic hygiene. That level of disrespect inevitably reflects in other aspects of their behavior. Story 58. Smoke. There is nothing appealing about smoking, and there never will be. It is acceptable to send back an improperly cooked steak, but it is important to remain respectful while doing so. Story 59. I dislike when attractive men are self-absorbed and crave attention. That straight fraternity boy attitude annoys me. Story 60. Be unkind. Mock others without reason, especially if they believe they are being clever. Display selfishness, misogyny, or double standards. Story 61. I was out with some friends, and one of our friends, who is gorgeous, was trying to figure out a 20% tip. I told her to just double the tax, which is 10% here, and she looked at me deadpan and said, "I'm too pretty for math." At that point, any level of attractiveness seemed to fade. Story 62. When they start comparing themselves to the main character from Pearl because she had strong feelings towards me, I usually jokingly say I can fix her, but that was too crazy for me. Story 63. Being rude or disrespectful to my friends and family members. as well as frequently talking about their past relationships, is problematic. Story 64. Send unsolicited explicit images. Think we will engage in intimacy before we have even met. Have an unfriendly commentary about the people around us. Story 65. Girls are like this, girls are like that. Some guys display misogynistic behavior without any personal reason. Story 66. When I tell them something, they respond with, well, trying to one-up my problems. Did I not realize it was a competition to see who has it worse? Story 67. People who openly talk about using the restroom, passing gas, and burping, and who engage in those behaviors openly, either because they are comfortable with you or because they think it's funny. Story 68. Someone mentioned being cruel to animals, but it also applies to being cruel to others. I could never be with someone who is a bad person. You need to have an open heart and be understanding. Story 69. When people boast about hunting or fishing or harming animals in any way, it raises concerns. You kill or hurt animals for sport or otherwise. That's troubling. Story 70. Judging others for their actions which they would also be judged for, but they get away with it because they are popular and liked by people. Story 71. Some individuals make politics their entire personality, refusing to discuss anything else. They then shame those who choose not to live their lives in that way. Story 72. Being too self-centered can be problematic. I agree that it's important to communicate if you have an issue with someone, but it's equally important to notice and engage with others. I believe that individuals who fail to pay attention to those around them can come across as unattractive. Story 73. Not listening when someone is talking. There is an appropriate time to check your phone or speak to someone else. Story 74. To me, I have been on dates with several guys. The thing is, I know I am attractive, but when a guy keeps praising my looks and only my looks, it becomes a bit of a turnoff for me. Like, I am more than just my appearance. Can we have a normal conversation without you interrupting every 2 minutes to tell me how beautiful I am? It's not that I don't appreciate it. I do. But after 3 compliments on the first date, it tells me that you prioritize looks over everything else. Story 75. Their hygiene is concerning. It is not just about the smell. If they do not regularly brush their teeth, shower, or wash their clothes, it becomes an issue. Story 76. Table manners. I don't know why it bothers me so much. Eating with an open mouth, talking while eating. The least you can do is cover your mouth when talking. Not covering your mouth while using a toothpick, sneezing in your palm instead of your elbow, and sneezing directly toward people or me as if germs don't exist are all concerns. Talking vulgarities at a dinner in public is particularly bothersome. I experienced this with an ex while eating at a cantina. I don't remember the context, but she loudly used the word shit, which disturbed me because in my mind, gross words like shit, vomit, and urine should not be used in the context of eating, especially in public. But maybe I'm just weird. Story 77. When they have dried crust in the corners of their eyes, but are fully made up with all types of makeup, isn't it surprising they didn't notice? Story 78. Pick at things on their head, neck, or face and then look at what they picked off on their nails while speaking to you. Bonus points if they eat it. Story 79. Being unhygienic, such as sneezing into hands and then touching objects, or not washing hands regularly, is quite off-putting. It is unpleasant and a significant turn-off. Story 80. I feel the need to avoid discussing politics regardless of party affiliation. I just want to enjoy a date without talking about political issues. Story 81. Zero humility, elevated ego. I understand you are attractive, but there is no need to act as if you are better than everyone else. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.